It goes without saying that where we want to go, we're going to need resources. We're going to need resourcefulness. We're going to need intelligence. So if you don't have the intelligence or the experience, surround yourself with the people who can help you get that and ask questions.
Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Conscious Investor, thank you so much for tuning back in. I am absolutely excited because right now, I think about you all the time. I'm thinking about what is going to serve you. What are some of the challenges that you are facing? Because this podcast needs to support you and help you take that next step that you're looking for. And sometimes that's on one of the mindset episodes on Monday. Sometimes that's through one of these powerful interviews with, industry leaders that I respect and admire and know will really empower you. And today, I have somebody that it's been like a unicorn experience. There's not really a masculine way of talking about unicorns because they're so feminine, but so maybe we'll figure that one out. But I'm so thrilled to have my friend, and we've never met until this moment, but we know each other through the social spheres. And Conscious Investor, you know what that means, LinkedIn. Primarily. He's really big on Instagram. So, you can check him out there. But Tyler's going to be joining us. We're going to be talking all about all of the feelings that we've had and how we work through those feelings of making our first passive investment. Like Tyler has extensive experience working with passive investors, and he's himself is a passive investor. And so these feelings are feelings that he's experienced, I've experienced, feelings that his clients have experienced, his investors have experienced, and feelings that you have experienced when you've invested with me and Three Keys Investments. So, this is going to be a great conversation that's just going to really support you. And if you've already placed your investment, if you've already gone down that rabbit hole and you're already passively investing, listen through, because this content is going to also reveal to you that gap, right? That where you started and where you are now. And a lot of times we miss out on seeing that growth and progress that we've made because we're so focused on the moment and where we're headed. And so listen to this episode and celebrate, wow, I've made these strides in my investing. And then think about, who could I share this with? Who needs to start investing and diversifying their portfolio in this way. So now that I've given you all that backstory, I am absolutely totally thrilled to have Tyler on the show. Tyler, it's been so long. Welcome to the Conscious Investor.
Julie, it's so wild. I'm sitting here. I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience. So I feel like we've had this conversation many other times in our imagination, but I'm super excited to be here with you. And I just appreciate your positive energy you're bringing to this and the way that you're serving others. So hopefully together we can serve many people today. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so thrilled to have you. And yes, it does feel like this whole way after 2 years, I feel like I've been stalking you and like watching your content. So, normally we wait until the end, this, because you also are a podcast host, but I don't want to wait till the end to talk about your podcast, because listeners, the Conscious Investor right now you are going to love the Elevate podcast. I love it. You are going to devour it. So, let's just give them a little bit of a teaser on the front end right now about what is your podcast? What is it about, and how will it serve them?
Well, you're very kind for giving me that opportunity. Thank you. And Elevate is all about mindset, mind expansion, and personal development for high-performing real estate investors. And the reason why I am so passionate about those topics is because I've found that it really comes down to your inner dialogue and your relationship with yourself and the way that you're investing in yourself in terms of your success that you're creating through this beautiful vehicle. And by the way, real estate is a vehicle towards creating outcomes that we want in our life. And of course, a lot of us fall in love with that vehicle. We fall in love with the strategy, the tactics, the tools. and the implementation, the action steps with regard to taking action as an investor, whether you're passive or active, or you're sponsoring deals. I mean, it doesn't really matter, because ultimately it comes down to your decision making. And those things, in terms of the mindset and the mind expansion, by the way, we have to learn every day is an opportunity for us to learn and grow. And by the way, that's a foundational mindset, as well as the growth mindset. We don't have to have every answer to take imperfect action, but we can move forward if we realize that any moment is an opportunity for us to win or learn, right? It's an opportunity for us to progress forward. And so that's what Elevate's all about. It's, we talk with people like yourself. And by the way, I can't wait to have you as a guest very, very soon. And we talk to other people, whether they're world-class investors, other experts who are creating amazing things in their own realm, to give us the opportunity to recognize that these patterns, whether it's, in habits or rituals, or the things that we're doing to invest in ourselves, and the things that we're doing to elevate our own lives as well as others around us, gives us the opportunity to continue to propel our lives forward through real estate. And so that's what the podcast is all about. If people want to learn more about it, they can just go to elevatepod.com, or they can check out Elevate on wherever they listen to podcasts. So thank you so much for giving me that opportunity.
All right, conscious investor, you can already see it's like its own version. It's your own iteration. Like, I feel like we have such complementary podcasts and content, and we create, it's spoken in our own unique way. And so that's what's so special about it, is that now you now know another podcast that's going to fuel you in a very similar way to this podcast. And it's really great because, it's great to listen around. In fact, something you said made me think about a podcast that I was listening to this morning. It's new in my life, and I'm always devouring new content. I'm going to show you, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to actually hold it up to the screen. You can see it's called Coaching for Leaders, and it is by Dave, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Shakoviak. But check out Coaching for Leaders, because he was talking about something that you just, kind of touched on, on a high level, is our emotions. And about 25 minutes in, they were talking about 70% of our decision making is based upon emotions. And if you've been listening to the Conscious Investor for the last couple of weeks, I touched on this in a mindset episode on goal setting. We are emotional creatures. And so, when we invest, we're making a rational decision. And we're going to say that that's actually about 30%. And that's what their brain scans show. And then the other 70% is really an emotional decision. Tyler, let's talk about that. What do you think about that concept, and what have your experiences been like personally and with investors?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I love about your podcast as well, and it's let's not make the whole conversation about what I love about your podcast, what I love about mine, or what you love about mine. So I think it's funny, but the fact that it's called the Conscious Investor is a critical and important topic. Because one of the things that Nietzsche talked about is that one of the biggest strengths or opportunities for growth is bringing the unconscious to the conscious, right? A lot of this stuff is unconscious. I mean, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. And most of those are repeated from the day before that. We have habits of thought. And actually, if you look at it, if you really drill into it, 90% plus of those thoughts are negative. And, they're looking in our environment for opportunities or threats to, get away from, or problems to solve. And that's a good thing, because it's allowed us to, continue to propel our genes forward and survive throughout, hundreds of thousands and millions of years, from our ancestors forward. But now when we bring the unconscious to the conscious, and we recognize that most of our decisions in investing are actually emotions, that's an interesting concept. And we start to say, well, wait a minute, no, I'm a rational investor. I look at the numbers, and I tell the numbers tell me what to do, and I follow my path, and I follow my checklist. But ultimately, when we have an awareness to the fact that, yes, but the numbers typically are just a rationalized opportunity for us to verify our emotions about a project, about an opportunity, about a partner, about a market, and all these different things. And so, we can validate any belief that we have by looking for it. And, there's many different rabbit holes that we can go down by talking about that. but I think that it's important for us to be conscious of the fact that, we're not nearly as rational as we think we are. So
Mhm.
maybe we could have a bit of curiosity to say, well, I wonder why I am so confident in this deal, or why am I so, so shaky about this? It's like, well, wait a minute, this seems like a deal that I would want to go to, but my emotions, perhaps when we get conscious of that, are telling me that this is not the move. And so I think that's the first step, is to kind of be mindful and recognize that, and one of the things that I learned through the years is that when we're negotiating with someone
Mhm.
else or in business, most high level negotiations you would think have all to do with principles and, your outcomes versus my outcomes, and let's overlap these things, and let's, you put one piece on the table, I'll put another piece on the table, here's my trade-off. And yes, those are certainly applicable concepts, but ultimately it comes down to emotions. How does this make you feel? What does this make you feel like you're gaining, or what does this make you feel like you're losing? And so when we start to get more conscious of that, when we start to get more aware of those feelings, then we can start to be an investigator and say, oh, how interesting that I'm feeling that way because of this. And guess what? Here's the other thing, Julie. There's always a story underneath the story. And so when
7
we start,
layers at least.
7 layers at least. And like when you ask someone why is something so important to them, the first thing they may say, and like let's just ask your listeners, why is investing in real estate so important to you? And they might say
Mhm.
financial freedom, right? Or or any other litany of things. And you say, well, why is financial freedom important to you? And you go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting when you gain that clarity. It allows you to have more clarity on, well, where exactly do I want to go with this? So I love that you started with emotions, because in my opinion, it starts with bringing the subconscious to the conscious. And then when we have more awareness of this, then we can have more clarity in our decision making.
It's really interesting. And I speak about the subconscious mind. You go down that path often as well. And it's amazing. And, if you're new conscious investor, if you're new to listening to the show, you're going to hear me talk in future episodes about the subconscious mind, because it's so powerful. So let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's pick that apart for just a moment and say, hey, if you brush your teeth, you're breathing, everything is regulated. I was talking to my son, who's 14, about this on the drive home, about how critical it is that we're programming our subconscious mind. Because, hey, I was driving home and I told him, I said, hey, I didn't even realize I'm just automatically taking this route home. I'm not even paying attention to it,
Mm.
because my subconscious mind, my body is designed and created to create the most efficient way to get from point A to point B. It saves our energy and allows us to be more alert. And so we really have to take time to ask those deeper questions. And it's, Tyler, would you agree? I have found that when I want to go down that rabbit hole, it makes my brain sweat, because my
Yeah.
subconscious mind does not want to release it. My subconscious mind is like, no, we already have a process and a system for this. Get away from us. And it kind of gets a little porcupiney and protective. And so have you experienced that?
Yes, I have. It is funny when you really start to think about it and you start to appreciate how powerful your subconscious mind is. And really, what it's doing is it's putting certain tasks and decisions on autopilot for us, which is a beautiful thing, because if not, by the time we're done with breakfast, we're going to be totally exhausted, where it's like the day is over. It's like, well, oh, I had
Gosh.
to decide on, how to tie my shoes again, and to drink water, or how to back the car out, how to clip my, my seatbelt in, and all of these different things. It's like, when you really think about it, the amount of decisions that we make on a daily basis, it's pretty astounding. And it's
Yeah.
something that we can sit back and say, you know what, I'm actually really grateful for this, because like you said, the efficiency aspect of our subconscious mind and of the habits that are then installed as a result, it's a beautiful thing. But I think that it is important, as you mentioned, to program and leverage our subconscious mind, because ultimately it is one of our most, if not the most powerful tool that we actually have in our psychology. And ultimately, Napoleon Hill basically referred to the subconscious mind as infinite intelligence. And there's something that we can tap into that is much stronger than our conscious mind. Because, look, I think it's important for us to continue to grow. As I was talking about earlier about elevate, mind expansion, I think it's important for
Mhm.
us to expand our horizons and recognize different perspectives and think about things in different ways. Because there's this amazing thing called neuroplasticity. We can learn, we can grow, we can never stop learning. And we can take it so much further if we tap into our subconscious mind. When I think about leveraging our subconscious mind, in my opinion, it is about conditioning our mind for success. It's about conditioning our mind for things that we want in our life, things that we want to contribute, things that we want to become, goals that we'd like to achieve. Of course, there's various tools for us to be able to do that. I think relationships are a key component. Who are you spending your time with? What type of material are you engaging in? Are you listening to podcasts like this? This is a tool to leverage our subconscious mind, but other things like, of course, setting goals and being aware of those goals and having them in your mind, your sight of, clarity from a daily basis, but also things like, vision boards. There's this thing that I've been doing over the past year called a vivid vision, and getting really clear on creating and being very intentional about what does the next 3 years look like in my personal life and in my business. And these are ways to leverage the subconscious mind. The mind does not know the difference between an imagination and reality. And when you elevate your emotions to say, you know what, I'm just going to trick myself and believe that that's already happening today, and I'm going to be really grateful for that. It's amazing what happens. It's not this, a lot of people get confused, in my opinion, with the law of attraction, because I think a lot of people think, well, I hear you. The law of attraction is I think of something and then all of a sudden it happens. Well, I think the missing step on that is that people don't realize that things don't just happen, but opportunities then come into your world to take action. And when you are leveraging your subconscious mind for this greater future and for these things that are true to you, that are in alignment with your true, in my opinion, this may be going over the top, but your soul, what's in alignment with your soul. When you are leveraging your subconscious mind, those opportunities, then it seems like coincidences, but there's actually science behind this as well. It's called quantum physics, quantum mechanics. And when things come in your line of sight to take action on them, you recognize that and you get excited. And so I'm going off on many different tangents here, but I think it's important to note that.
Well, it is really important. In fact, I have some silly ones, and I conscious investor, I encourage you to just sample this. It's really funny. And I'm anchored in my faith, but I shouldn't say but. And I believe that I'm designed and created with this crazy, amazing mind. And the more I go down and explore the mind, it's amazing how powerful it is. And so I have a few affirmations, which is kind of tongue in cheek initially, but it's proven itself true. For example, I always get great parking, and deer do not hit my car. Those are two things in that I have. And I'll tell you what, you ask my family, I always get the best parking no matter where I am. And deer do not hit my car. They hit other people's cars, but not my car. So, it's kind of silly, but I encourage you, if you haven't explored this concept, just grab something, because I am missing the other part of this for whatever, the reticular.
Reticular activating system. Yep.
Yes. Thank you. The RAS. I am like, our RAS just comes in. And so let's think about this in terms of your investing. Right. So you might be thinking about single family houses. You might be thinking, I'm going to go and invest in a single family house, but you can see that it has a stopgap. It's just going to stop at some point. And so, that's not the long-term plan. That investing in multifamily and, industrial and, self-storage and things that, other assets are going to be better for you. And so let's start planting. Let's give your brain a path that it can follow, so that as you see those passive investments, you can get all the mechanics you want over on YouTube. You can read books. You can find all the mechanics to know how to vet the deal itself. But you're not going to find books that are going to say, hey, let's get your brain processed so that you're emotionally prepared to make that decision, so that you don't have this collision between, I know this is a good deal, but now that 70% of emotions is overriding and I'm not taking action. So let's talk, Tyler, about maybe some steps that, not maybe, I got to get that passive word out of my vocabulary, but let's talk about some steps that we can take as investors to really create a path for ourselves.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is obviously it's begin with the end in mind. Where are you going? What is it that you're looking to accomplish? And we were talking about asking ourselves the question, 7 times to get, 7 layers deep. I think you can start there. It's a very, very helpful thing to know is that, maybe passive income or financial freedom may be the first layer, but as you go a bit deeper, and that may not be your first layer, maybe one of the layers, but there may be other things that you believe that you're focused on as an investor. I think getting clarity on what it is that you truly are looking to accomplish and allowing yourself to say, okay, well, now that I have that clarity and I've began with the end in mind of the path that I'm taking, now I can reverse engineer and say, well, how does that result into, the actual numbers and, what number of investments, would allow me to get to where I want to go? And having the clarity on the purpose for that accomplishment is a critical start of that path. From there, it's about really, oh, go ahead.
Okay. If you're on YouTube, you see, I'm like, wait, I want to throw something in there. I'm going to give an analogy along the way, maybe. Again, I don't know where this maybe has entered my vocabulary or if I've just become acutely aware of that passive word. So I'm going to encourage you, conscious investor, look for passive words because we're people of action. So let's put this into practice. Conscious investor, think you're driving to work, you're driving home, you're not thinking about it because you know the destination where you're going to. So you want to invest and you know that that's the outcome you want. So you're clear on that. Okay. Thanks, Tyler.
Yes. When you have clarity of your vision, the resources then come to you. You don't have to have every single piece of action and next action step, to be able to get to where you're going to go, but having the clarity on that is where I'm going. Now that let me figure this out along the way. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people have a bit of a shortcoming on, and not necessarily a shortcoming, but a bit of a limiting belief on is that if I want to go there, I need to have every single resource outlined ahead of time. And so take imperfect action. I think that is a very, very important piece. Of course, education allows us to take effective action. So it goes without saying that where we want to go, we're going to need resources. We're going to need resourcefulness. We're going to need intelligence. So if you don't have the intelligence or the experience, surround yourself with the people who can help you get that and ask questions. And, that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made early in my investing career is that I didn't want everybody to know that I didn't know everything. So I was like,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So I didn't ask any questions. And so I learned the hard way. I learned the way that was much more expensive than the way that, that would have been if I would have asked the people who have been there, done that. And that's not to say that I wouldn't have made any mistakes, because I still would have. And I continue to make mistakes, but ask questions, surround yourself with mentors, surround yourself with people that you want to become like. And you know what? It's pretty amazing that those people are some of the most generous people. The ones who have created, tremendous resources in their life and wealth and so forth. Those are typically the most welcoming people. So they would love for you to ask these questions. So that's a path. And then of course, once you gain the clarity on, those resources, the intelligence, the team, the systems that you need to go where you want to go, then it's time to get really particular and really utilize tools in your life to be able to take that action. If you're a passive investor, it really comes down to relationships and trust and confidence. And as you have more and more clarity on your sort of investment philosophy or thesis or goal on where you're looking to go, it comes down to, choosing markets, choosing operators, and choosing deals and a risk profile of a certain type of deal that makes sense for you, as well as, by the way, a diversification play. Because what we're speaking to is are individuals who are not necessarily only investing in one particular opportunity, but perhaps they're investing in multiple opportunities. So thinking about, do I want to go all in on one market, one operator? Perhaps, maybe that makes sense for your goals, or maybe you have a belief that diversification is a valuable play as well, from not only an operator perspective, particular asset sub-market perspective, but also from a higher degree, different markets, different regions, so on and so forth. Also, different types of investment classes. When you think of a Class A multifamily investment versus a Class C multifamily investment, there's a different risk profile to that asset. There's pros and cons to both. But I think as you continue to learn, as you continue to grow, as you continue to ask questions, you can find the opportunities that make the most sense for you.
And that emotional, I love all of that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, just keep going. But I'm gonna step in and say I completely agree with you. And I see that even within the investors, that invest through Three Keys Investments. And I can see how some of them I'll actually say, hey, we don't have something. I know you have money to, that you've got a place, like, let's get your capital moving. Here are other operators. I know these two operators. I know them, like them, trust them. I would invest with them. Check out what they have. Check out what they have. And that gives you that emotional clarity as well to say, okay, they're already vetted by somebody. I know, like, maybe I already have money with them. I send you to somebody where you can be safe and sound. But that concept, I have some investors in a ground up development deal. I have some investors that are, hey, let's just stick to, that B light value add, Class B light value add product. That's where my little blanket. What have you found with and then we're in 5 different states. So it's just that, so what you're talking about, that variety, it really is so interesting. And every operator has something that they're offering that's going to be nuanced. And so let's I want to know what you guys offer, because I'm sure passive investors are listening right now saying, like, well, that Three Keys, we know they're in 5 states and they do a lot of different types of projects for different risk profiles. What do you guys look like?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I'll say too that the relationship piece of this is the most important aspect. Ultimately, I mean, our investors, our investor community grows through referral. And, the best compliment that we can receive from people who partner with us is to either invest with us again or refer somebody else. And so we do the same as well, because we have an abundance mindset, and it's not a zero-sum game. It's not if we send an investor, if we refer an investor to another operator, that means that they have an opportunity to continue to achieve their goals or go where they want to go. And that all comes back, and it comes back in greater quantities to everybody. And so I think that's an amazing thing. But in terms of our company, CF Capital, we focus on value add multifamily across the Midwest and Southeast. And so we look at markets that are not boom or bust type of markets, markets that have actually been growing very healthily over the past, many decades. But things, markets that haven't been front page news. And we actually really like that. And the reason why is because we can acquire, properties for significantly below replacement cost. We have clear value add strategies. We have population growth. We have opportunities for passive investors to invest in what we would describe as safe assets, whether we're in a growth market, an expansion of the economy, or whether we're experiencing a contraction or a recession. These are recession resilient type of assets and recession resilient type of markets as well. And I think it's very important for investors to consider, different strategies for different types of passive investments. If you're investing in a high-rise new development in Miami, Florida, you're going to be looking at a very vastly different type of risk profile, which can have tremendous upside, but in other cases can be very speculative in nature. So we look at assets that are cash flowing today, that we have a clear path forward to improve the operations and the financial capacity of those assets, and also weather any storm that comes to our path. And ultimately, at the end of the day, our philosophy is that everybody needs a place to live. And ultimately as well, we can make an impact in our communities by doing the right thing. We've talked about Elevate, and again, the abundance mindset comes into play. When investors invest with us, we can make a positive impact. And our tagline is elevating communities together. We can enhance ROI as a result of improving the lives of our residents, of our staff, of the communities that we invest in. And we have a specific playbook that we initiate for doing that. But beyond that, it is about cash flow. It is about upside. It is about tax benefits and all those amazing things. But I think now more than ever, more people need to be aware of these type of opportunities, because we see what's going on in Wall Street, and it's pretty devastating to a lot of people. And I think this is an opportunity for people to gain more control over their financial future.
Gosh, I love it. It seems like our companies should just be like one company, because it like just the ethos beneath it, underlying ethos is just like so in sync. And just as you said, everyone needs a home, and strong communities are built by strong residents, and they need a place to live. And so when we have places to live that are, this is speaking back to that emotional component right there. When people feel emotionally safe, when their needs are met, they show up in the world as better people. They can be more solid. So adding units, through ground up development, it's a higher risk profile. It doesn't work for everybody, but oh my gosh, that's 144, possibly 184 people that will now have a place to live that is great. And going in and doing value add, and we always make our investments based off of numbers ultimately, but we have to have that emotional alignment with something, and we need to be listening to that intuition that we have to guide us, and to be aware of that. So you can say like, this is an alignment with me, because when we follow that alignment, something more powerful, something larger than us happens and takes place.
I totally agree. And you have to recognize that it is about aligning yourself with people who share your values as well. Because, a lot of times, at the end of the day, what we are talking about is making investments that, obviously help us reach our financial goals. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, are you partnering with someone that you trust and that you have confidence in, that will make the right decisions on your behalf when times get tough? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. I mean, at the end of the day, cycles, unfortunately, are a fact of this business. What goes up sometimes does come down. And so, I think that in the apartment business in particular, it is more of a resilient type of an investment because of the fact that people always need a place to live. But ultimately, I think it's so important to have alignment with the fact that you trust this person and this team to be able to make tough decisions in your best interest when times are not as rosy as we all would love for them to always be.
That is something that's had me very wide-eyed over the last, I would say the last 10 months solidly, where we need to be very wide-eyed about, and conscious investor, I am very deliberate about who I partner with. I've known you for a year at least, and and you have a track record. I need to know who you are, because we need to be able to qualify that for that emotional component for our investors. It's not just this rational piece. So we would be robotic. We'd be robots if we just based everything off of rations. But, as I said in a recent episode, why do you drink that glass of wine at the end of the day? Why do you go for that bag of chips when, someone frustrates you at work? Why do you go, and those are just food responses. I'm not even talking about the anger and the frustration and the verbal responses we can have, but we have these responses. We respond emotionally. And so being aligned with operators, because limited partners are passive investors. They are partners in our deals. You are a partner. Just because you don't have a voting voice doesn't mean you're a lesser partner. And so having that aligned partnership is so critical in everything that you are doing. So do you have any ideas, and I'm looking at the time, I'm like, well, our time is flying by, Tyler.
I know.
Do you have, maybe a nugget that you would say, how would you know? How would you know if that's a strong alignment? Because there are a lot of people that posture, you and I know, there are a lot of people that posture, they flex, they look so amazing on social media, and maybe they don't perform. Maybe at the end of the day, the deals don't actually consistently perform as, projected. How would somebody find that type of alignment?
Well, so first of all, so the question initially is, how do you know? And I think that, let's look at it in a couple of different perspectives. How do you know prior to really knowing the facts? So we've been talking about the subconscious mind so much in this conversation. And, it's really interesting to recognize that the subconscious mind is actually our body. Our body is our subconscious mind. So that, if you really get down to it, the biological description of the subconscious mind is our body. The cells of our body are telling us something. Our conscious mind is our, our brain and our, really the fore part of our brain here. And that's where we're in a beta brainwave state and we're active. Like you and I are in a beta brainwave state and we're thinking, we're conscious. But the subconscious mind is telling us something. A lot of people will say, trust your gut. And, there's a feeling that comes along with trusting your gut. And, like you and I have a great feeling about our conversation today. I know that you're truly here to serve the listeners and to add value to their world. You're not here to take from them. You're here to give to them. And to me, my subconscious mind is telling me this is an individual who is somebody that I want to align with. This is someone who I really know cares about other people. And to me, that resonates with me. Everybody has a little bit of a different sort of feeling, but I think it's important for us to, again, be mindful and be aware of what is our body trying to tell us. When you meet someone new, when you find a new operator that's telling you about their business plan, well, how does it make you feel? Because guess what? There's something about that. There's actually more intelligence in our subconscious mind than there is in our conscious mind. And when we start to get conscious of the unconscious, then we can say, well, wait a minute, this is or is not in alignment. And I can tell you that every single time that I've made a decision that was somewhat out of alignment, but I'm like, but the numbers look so good. And look at this deal and look at this market. And every single time it's come back to say, hey, remember that feeling you had? And remember that hesitation that you didn't listen to? So let this be a bit of a course correction to say, let's listen, let's tune in. Because a lot of times, again, the subconscious mind is very powerful and it allows us to do so many things without being so exhausted by, by breakfast or by lunchtime. But at the same time, it also gives us this opportunity, if we listen to it, if we listen to these emotions, which, by the way, they can be very powerful drivers and decision makers for us, because there is a higher power, there is infinite intelligence in the cells of our body, in the subconscious mind. So I think it's being aware and being in alignment with what are we feeling. And, I think it starts in our gut.
That's interesting. I had a deal that I had said, okay, 3 Keys is going to participate in this offering. And I threw it out to the investors. And you guys loved it. You thought it was a great deal. And something wasn't sitting right. Great partners, great numbers. I actually physically went down to Texas, and checked it out, everything. I'm like, I'd done what I needed to do. And for some reason, I could not sleep at night. Something was it wasn't a, tummy ache type thing, but there was something going on physiologically where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And I've never experienced this. I know I've done enough deals. This isn't nerves. I know it's not. Went through a checklist and I just trusted it. And it was so scary to trust. And you get this, Tyler, to withdraw and say, I don't know why. I'm just trusting this. And to go back to you, amazing investor, and say, I don't know why, but I'm going to trust this. It's a great deal. You feel like you put your reputation on the line. You put everything online because you're presenting something really great. And ultimately, interest rates changed, everything shifted. And a month later, the deal had disintegrated. So, listening to that intuition, trusting that intuition, that definitely saved the investor a process. And that makes me happy, but somehow it's also learning to listen to your intuition even sooner, always being acutely aware of, our consciousness.
Yeah. Trust in that. And eventually it will become clear as to why that message was what it was. But I think, we're all guilty of not listening to that. But I think, it's just a call for the audience to say, okay, well, maybe what was a recent decision that I made that was either in or out of alignment, and what could have gone differently, and maybe get curious. Well, why was it telling me that? And I think that's a powerful exercise to get more clear and get more in tune with your subconscious mind and your own infinite intelligence, because we all have that.
Yes. And that might mean why didn't I choose to invest in that deal recently? Was I listening to too much of the news? Was I listening to Susie Q and, Amit at the office talking about the economy and global, was I making a fear-based decision? Like, what was driving that decision to not make that investment? How did that help or hinder me?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, so great point. And just real quick to add on to that,
Yeah.
because to your point, like our subconscious mind is being leveraged and programmed in whichever way. So being conscious of how you're being programmed and be conscious of the leverage factors, because it can be good or bad, right? To your point, I mean, as much as we try to be conscious of the material that's going into our mind, it starts in our conscious mind, then manifests in our subconscious mind. I think that is a really powerful distinction that you just shared, because there are certainly times where, the lower self is actually kind of being manifested in our subconscious mind. Sometimes fear is a very powerful factor. And so if we get clear about, well, wait a minute, I'm just fearful because my lower self says if I try, I might fail. And, maybe all of this bad news, it's just constant negative news everywhere. If that is what is really manifesting in this feeling, let's get mindful about that. So I'm really glad you shared that.
Yes. The mindfulness is absolutely imperative to living that life that you want, because the reality is you can live whatever life you choose. I didn't always believe that. I believe that we didn't have as much of a voice. And as I've gotten older and I've researched more and I've experienced more, you have control over your life. You get to decide. And really, the world isn't telling us that. They tell us to choose to be happy, but they don't tell us we get to decide. And the reality is you get to choose right now, today. You choose what you believe. We do an exercise. We just started it in the car on the way to school. What do you choose to believe about yourself today?
Ooh.
What do you choose? Because you get to choose if you believe you're smart or if you're dumb, if you're cool or you're not cool. You can tell, right? My kids are teenagers. So, it's like, but you got to choose what you believe about you, because you're the one that gets to decide. It's your life. You call the shots.
I want to stack on that just briefly.
Awesome.
Let's be conscious of our identity. Let's be conscious of our habits. Let's be conscious of the dialogue that we're having with ourselves. Ultimately, it all starts with a conscious choice, right? I am whatever, right? I am. And then it becomes subconscious after, we initiate these rituals and these behaviors and this dialogue and these type of conversations, with our family or with ourselves. That's when it starts to become subconscious, but we have to choose first. It doesn't just happen. I think a lot of people miss that it's like, well, these people are just lucky, like they just have this perfect mindset and they're just abundant and whatever. But, they have to start there. This all starts with the desire to choose. Like you were talking about, there's times where, you get stressed out and you go home and you eat a bag of chips. Well, that's subconscious, but at one point it was conscious. So there was a choice, which then became a behavior that's repeated because there's a result on the end of that. And it's like, well, what would be more empowering for me is maybe a workout or an exercise or, just having a nap, maybe that would be more empowering for me. So you could take that in any different direction you want to, but I love that share.
Gosh. Okay. So Tyler, you're going to have to come back because we totally blew through. We went way past what I had suggested and everything. And I know Conscious Investor, you've gained so much from this conversation. And so, as we're wrapping up here, I want to remind you, go check out Elevate. Tyler's podcast is fantastic. So you want to make sure you go check it out, because this is that, thinking that is really going to empower and just help you gain that momentum that you are looking and striving for. You want that. And so, invite us. We're your friends and we are your friends. So make sure you friend us over on LinkedIn and, Instagram. I should get bigger on Instagram. Help me get bigger on Instagram. Okay. If you go there, Conscious Investor, I will go there. So, Tyler, any other best ways for the Conscious Investor to find you?
The only other way would just, CF Capital. Our website is cfcapllc.com. We do have a free ebook for investors, and I think it gives folks to a bit more clarity in terms of how we actually increase cash flow, how we increase revenue, and how we actually make these investments work. So if folks just go to cfcapllc.com, they can find out more about that and learn more about what our team's all about. But other than that, Julie, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, a total blast. Thank you for coming. It's been too long. You're coming back on the show sooner than later.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Conscious investor, thank you for joining us. I know you've gained so much, and there's been so many gems throughout this episode. So don't try to overthink and don't try to say, oh, I got to capture all of them. Just take the number one. Okay. This could be that first step possibly for you to listen to, that subconscious mind. What was it? What drew you to what, were you most drawn to? And just lean into that, because just if you take one step with every podcast episode you listen to, if you just take one thoughtful, thought further, then you are going to go so far. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you leave a rating and review and share this with people, because that's how we know. That's wind in my sails, Until next time, live big, love bigger. Feeling alone? Disconnected? Conscious investors often feel alone or disconnected because of their unique perspective and desire to expand their thinking. But the journey of a lifetime isn't meant to be solo or forged by grit alone. Join the Conscious Investor community on Facebook. Link arms, exchange ideas, and expand your thinking on finances, relationship, and community. Join the Conscious Investor group on Facebook today.